Hello and welcome to our Tarot On video being recorded on the 7th of May 2020 in the first of the last of the end of the middle of the beginning of the first phase of the pandemic of 2020. In future, you'll be able to tell a bit like in the Avengers films with Scarlett Johansson's hair, depending on the length and colour of it. You'll be able to tell which video you're watching by my hair, I think. So hello to Transylvania, hello to Derek and Tony and Marcy and Michael, Evelyn, Debbie, everyone who's joining us in the live recording. If you're watching this on the whichever platform I manage to port these to later on, then you won't see the comments happening in the side, but they're a rowdy bunch, I can tell you. And we have survived. We have survived over 50 videos, which is a remarkable feat in itself. And as far as I know, most of us have managed to keep safe and healthy and looked after enough to be here as the online original order of hermits, the Ooze. So here in the UK at the moment, we're waiting on. We had a I think it's a review every 2 weeks of the lockdown, or 3 weeks, and that review was today, and they're going to announce some new measures, or easing of the measures, should I say, on Sunday. So I'll know a little bit later then as to what the situation is here. But in the meantime, we're going to be recording the videos. I'm going to give you some homework for the weekend if you're watching this as a live video. So what we'll be doing is doing today's video with a recap of the astral travel that we did. And I'm going to do some more Lenormand today with our tarot time traveling. As we ease ourselves back down into the new normal, we'll be looking at some tarot time traveling, maybe return briefly to the cube of space that I promised that we'd take a look at way back 50 something days ago. And what else? Oh, and I'm going to read you some A.E. Waite as our gems in the lockdown from Tarot Time Traveller, because A.E. Waite did talk about Lenormand in a sort of way. So yeah, Singapore had some initial good impact from their original lockdown, I think, but yeah, things are going to keep shifting with this virus. It is literally a biological change, an organism that will shift around as we react to it. So yes, I wish everyone a safe passage through this first wave, and let's hope that there's only going to be one wave of this. So last night and the night before, if you recall, I gave you a astral key and a door, and that door was yellow, like the background here with the red rose in the middle, and I placed with visualization and a sort of semi-ritual a particular object behind it, and I asked us to try and visualize an astral form for ourselves, to project ourselves into that astral form. Then the little trick that I have, which is to then use that form to visualize another one that's even more powerful than the first one, and then sort of gradually ramp that up until you're ready to go through the door and see the object that was placed behind it, if that can be done. Now, the aim of this was not to necessarily get the object right and to make it easier. I think I said it was going to be an animal. And so the aim is not necessarily to have even experienced an animal on the other side of the door. It was to give a focus point, an outcome point for for practicing the visualization and practicing the methodology of doing that astral form, because it's far better if you're working towards an aim as opposed to let's just practice that as is and then see what happens. So I would like you, if you did practice that exercise in the live class, if you're watching this as a recording, then don't if you want to do the exercise that's in the previous video, then make sure you go back and do it before there are spoilers beyond this point. It won't be as effective or impactful if you watch beyond this point and everyone reveals what their sighted animal was or their experienced animal, and I tell you what the animal was that I placed behind it, and then we compare notes. Because if you're watching this as a recording, then go back and do the exercise for a couple of days before watching this any further. You have been warned, and there will be spoilers starting in 5, 4, 3, final warning, 2, 1. Okay, so right, so those watching this as a live, if you did the exercise and got an animal, or feel that you had some experience of an animal or guess of an animal, then please write it in now, like literally now. Do it all together if you can, and I'll see what comes up, and then I'll share. I spent most of the day trying to draw the animals, so I hope that at the very least that you get to share the genius artwork that I've created for this. So that's interesting. So we've had 2 tigers, a bird, lion, tiger, snake, chipmunk, bunny. Could have been a chipmunk bunny. There's a lot of those around. Blackbird, a ram, snake, a big cat, then birds, grey cat, cheetah, fiery energy, a lion. Okay, so yes, if well, it's sort of too late now, Fiona, if you've already seen some of the guesses, but if you want, then you can leave now and go do the exercise and then come back and watch this recording tomorrow. So we've got a cat, lion, so usual cat who visits. Right, is that about everyone's? Okay, so are we ready? Are we ready to see how our Astral project worked? Okay, I'll give you a few more moments. If anyone else actually did it. We could also, I guess, do a little poll to see what the most common one was. So if we're operating as a group mind, then we could say the suspense. Okay, let's reveal it. And I've written it down. I've actually written the words down in case you can't tell from my drawing. But the answer was dun, dun, dun. How about that, folks? So quite a few people actually got either a cat or a lion, which is excellent because it is the animal that I visualized on 3 separate occasions. Yes, at least we're in the right sort of area or family for the exercise. Yeah, this is the 90th drawing. It's taken about 5 hours to create that. Right, Okay, so as I say, the main point was really not to necessarily get the animal that was there, because in order to do that, I think we would have needed a lot more sort of commonality other than one particular object. Because what we did was we sub one key, one resonance. So yeah, a cat is fine. But if you have sort of one point of resonance, then the symbolism isn't necessarily going to be bound as what is called an egregore, which is a sort of group spirit that actually can be created by a group. And then when you have this sort of group think, group mind, and so on, it sort of generates a spirit of its own. And within that spirit or field, you can then put things in and then share them around the group itself. So if we'd have practiced some more rituals together, if we had have practiced different astral trips together, if we have keyed in exactly the same door and done it at exactly the same time, in exactly the same ritualistic method, then basically you can gain more of a resonance, with astral travel. And I think that's really the point I wanted to make, is that once you start doing this, then you practice by yourself and go on your own journeys, but also once you are on that sort of astral plane, there is a lot of resonance with other people. It's that sort of group mind, the group consciousness, the global awareness, and so on. Now, if you've got a totally different animal, that's fine. If you do, for example, the inner guide meditation, then one of the first steps is to find an animal, and quite that animal will stick with you for quite a while. So, yeah, chess playing monkeys are absolutely fine, even if they are challenging, but each animal tends to reflect part of your own personality, part of your own spirit, which is why they're called either totem animal, spirit animal, power animal, depending on their particular function in those realms, and also in the real world as well. Okay, so that was fun. Now, what I've done is I have added a document into the Facebook group, if you haven't seen it yet, of 10 things to do in an astral temple. 10 things to do in an astral temple. And I wrote an article about 5 years ago from some of my experience when I was quite young and working with limited resources and just wanted to explore the astral. And I had a very small book at the time called Astral Travel, and I basically used a lot of the role-playing type scenarios and ideas to build up astral travel in my own head. So making an elemental temple was the very first I did, and a friend, clarity clarity and exercises to gain more clarity. Definitely, I'll just talk about that in a moment. Setting up an astral temple with the 4 elements was the very first thing I did. I can remember sketching it out with my friend when we should have been studying, and then waiting to get home in order to go into that half dream, half sleep state in order to build the astral temple. And then once I built the astral temple, actually then doing things inside it and bringing real life experience into the temple, and then changing real life experience through the things that were going on within the temple itself, actually setting up a resonance of the temple to the world around me, which is what a temple actually is. the altar in the middle of a temple is your sense of being within the universe, and the temple is representative of the universe. So everything you do inside your temple reflects in and out of the circle of the division of the temple, which literally means separation, in and out of the universe. In the same way that everything that you do with a tarot reading on a table is actually reflective on the table of outside in the wider universe. And then what happens in the situations outside of time in the universe reflect in to the in effect, ritual that you're doing with your divination. So Adriana, I did talk about the coronavirus situation just as far as just as a side thing, because it's not my realm of expertise, global prophecy. But I certainly think, I mean, when this whole thing started, I prepared for a whole waiting until July, August for it as a long-term thing, even before it started. That's why these videos started about 51 days ago, 53, 54 now, because I was getting prepared for quite a long run, even when it didn't seem that it would be such a big thing or such a long thing. My guesstimate from tarot readings that I was doing for lots of other people in December, right at the end of December, globally showed something July, August, and I have come to think that that's the outside wave of the whole corona virus, the pandemic, will cusp, in a sense, in July, August. Because if the cards are declared for everyone something big's going to happen in January or February even, or even March when the lockdowns mainly started, that wouldn't have been that useful. It would have told us something is going to happen, but not for how long. The tarot is far more useful to how long something's going to happen, so you can prepare for it, as opposed to when it's necessarily going to happen. The temple is a memory castle. It can be a memory castle. If you read the article that I put in the Facebook group, I do talk briefly about memory, what are actually called memory palaces. Right, now then, so just to talk visualization. With visualization, I found the best way to think about it is to really focus on things from NLP, which is chunking, which is the level of detail that you see things at, and your representation system. And if you follow someone's guided visualization, the problem is often that they will guide you in their particular way. I remember going to a big conference in Croydon, of all places. They were celebrating witchcraft inside a big concrete car park like hotel, and I travelled down from the Lake District. Someone was doing this big visualization, and there must have been about 30 or 40, maybe more, 70 perhaps, people in the audience, and they were following this good visualization with their eyes closed. And at some particular point, the person said, and you can see a box in front of you, and you open the box and reach your hand in, and a load of people suddenly opened their eyes, because what had happened is the person hadn't described how big the box was, and they did it on a table that the box was about this big in their version of it. But everyone else, because they hadn't been told how big the box was in these huge boxes. So they weren't going to just stick their hands in these big boxes or anything in case there was something inside them. So quite often a guided visualization has to be a lot more elegantly produced in order to work with everyone's main systems. So if you have a more auditory system, then when you close your eyes and start to visualize, visualize is the wrong word, it's to imaginize. So as you imaginize, which unfortunately still uses the word image in it, which is a visual component, then listen. If you're in front of a door, then actually reach out and listen to how the door opens and closes. Listen to the doorknob or knocking on it, whether it's hollow or solid. You can also touch it. So you get a feeling of the door as if even in the visualization, your eyes are actually closed. And you're feeling around, so you can feel the door, you can feel the lion or whatever it might be on the other side of it. So concentrate mainly on your main representation system. Yeah, so feel the smoothness, hear the noises around you, speak out loud inside the visualization if sound works for you. Feel the ground on your feet. Generally speaking, one of the first things to do is look at your feet and see what you're wearing. That really does seem to help, because that's part of your identity within that other world as well. Now, if you want to practice lucid dreaming, one of the best tricks I've ever found for it is hand observation. Now, most of the time, you look at your hands unconsciously, and they're always in front of you. But look at your hands and do it very consciously throughout the whole day. So when you're opening doors, when you're holding something, when you're drinking a cup, just look at your hands and notice them. And what that does is it brings to conscious attention your awareness of your hands, which are in front of you. And what tends to happen is in your dreaming, sometimes what will tend to happen is you'll wake up all of a sudden in the middle of the night unexpectedly for a few nights, on and off for a couple of weeks while you practice it. Because what's happening is you're seeing your hands in the dream, you're quite conscious of seeing them, and then that brings you straight back to conscious awareness. But if you can, what you can do is keep doing it until you can see your hands and catch it for a moment and know that you're dreaming. Keep your conscious mind, but keep the dreaming state. And it takes a bit of practice, but it's incredible when it works. One of the first times it happened for me, I was in a dream, and I was in French resistance, and there was some army units coming a lane, and I was in the fields, and I suddenly realized that they were going to start searching the fields and they might find me. And I reached out towards this hedge, and I saw my hands, and I realized at that point I was dreaming, and I could see the ground, the tilled earth underneath my feet. I knew whereabouts in France I was. I could feel my clothing. I could see the soldiers and the sort of open top jeep that they'd driven up in, and everything. And I just suddenly thought, oh my gosh, I'm dreaming. I can be on the other side of the fence if I want. And suddenly I just teleported to the other side of the fence because I knew I was dreaming. But it was such a lucid experience, and that was the first of many. But that's the sort of experience that you can aim for with lucid dreaming. It's very possible. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of patience, actually very little work. Another method that you can use is every now and again during your waking day, sort of say, is this likely to be a dream? and look around and say, no, I know how I got here. Everything seems fairly normal. And so basically, you keep questioning, just checking, is this a dream? It's a bit like in Inception, we have the totems, like the spinning top and things like that. They use those to check if they are in a dream or in reality. Inception is a very good film to watch with lucid dreaming. And other people have different methods, like placing a room beside a bed and so on. Right. And as Chris is asking, yes, you use music, lights, incense is also a very good way of going into an altered state, both in ritual and in dreams as well. So there are plenty of different ways to do that. Let's say I've given a 10 things to do in an astral temple. That's in the file section. If you're watching this as a recording, then here's your wave, first of all, and also the files will be there in the file section of the Facebook group. And just to answer Niran's earlier question, you can use the temple for manifestation, definitely, but I tend to use either ritual or the inner guide meditation, or both things in combination, because there is always a universal trade-off with any sort of manifestation or magical event. If you're going to tilt the entire universe, then there's always a tilt the other way. There's always cause and effect, very definitely. So a ritual is a good way to balance that off beforehand, because you can invoke all of the things that you're going to imbalance and keep them up, and then put your manifestation into place while having mitigated against the tipping to begin with, which is why we learn all of these occult symbols and practices and rituals, is to do that in a comprehensive, consistent and congruent way with the rest of what is actually arising around us. Okay then, so I'd like to read just a tad from 1872 from the Tarot Time Traveller. So I'm just going to read something that comes back to our very first session in a way. And just to answer Michael's question as well, quite often in altered states, your system changes. So if you're very visual in a creative way, then quite often when you try and do that in an altered state, such as ritual or astral travel, sorts of things, quite often the system will switch. So you might be more attuned to sound or even sense, like incense and things like that, in that regard. So just a couple more questions, those are great. Just to answer Tony, the Crucible Club is purely for my own Western esoteric initiatory system work, and Magica School is more general, if you like, outer courtyard for learning, particularly witchcraft. There's some brilliant witchcraft courses in Magica School, and the more general subjects, I guess, like Neolite Zelator stuff for spell crafting, candle magic, what else have we got in there? Psychic protection, the Dion Fortune courses in there, and things like that. So, and conscious mind blocking visualization, well, again, in the Western esoteric initiatory system, you learn certain symbols that you can then project out in your astral travel to clarify things, to break through things, to guard against unbalanced forces, all sorts of things. So when you go into slightly more advanced astral travel, like Rise on the Plains, for example, the Enochian work, where there are 30 ethers that you can travel through and up. And if you want to read a description of those, then Aleister Crowley's The Vision and the Voice is his accounts of going through those ethers. So he produced the Enochian calls, went into a trance-like state and then travelled into those ethers. They are a lot more rambunctious than a little astral temple you might build for yourself. These are the sort of high-level, high-altitude ethers with very sublime and powerful experiences within them. I was going to say entities, but that's the wrong word. So we could do a lesson on purification. That's possible, but we'll see how we do it as we slowly glide ourselves back into the normal. So I just wanted to read this from Fortune Telling by Cards, which is in 1872. And during that time, there was a little bit of a movement to make cartomancy sort of scientific. The book in 1872, which we mention in Tarot Time Traveler, teaches card reading by purely based upon mathematical principles. And the book assures us that it can be learned by any person of ordinary capacity, which is to know for those of us of ordinary capacity. But there was an interesting thing in that book where it listed the qualities one needed to be a good cartomancer. And we list them in Tarot Time Traveler because they still apply to today. And these qualities required for the successful study of cartomancy are application, practice, study, commitment, knowledge of symbolism, self-awareness, experience of life, curiosity, and structure. So I quite like the fact that they had curiosity in there, because curiosity is definitely the best way I've ever found of both learning and delivering a tarot reading. Because if you're curious with the client as to what the cards are telling you, then you can be open. And if you're curious, then it stops your mind closing with presuppositions and things that you might be biased with in the reading. So application, that is practice. Practice, that is practice. Study, obviously study. Commitment and patience. Knowledge of symbolism, I think, as I hope the previous 50-odd videos have shown, knowledge of symbolism, really important, because then you get correspondence. And once you get correspondence, that is the quintessential breakthrough teaching of Western esoteric and history system. I'll say that again. Correspondence is the quintessential breakthrough teaching of the whole of the Western esoteric history system. Cannot stress that enough. Knowledge of symbolism, so that leads to correspondence. Self-awareness, obviously. Self-awareness. Experience of life. So life experience, and as we saw from our synthesis on the bottom of the Tree of Life with the moon, Last Judgment, and the world, that Kesheth bow that we make with those three cards is by experiencing things in the world, synthesizing them, testing them with the Last Judgment, making decisions, trying them out, going across the Tower card at the bottom of the Tree of Life, breaking things down, finding what stands, finding what falls, then coming back down the moon card, yet again, reflecting on it, self-awareness, synthesizing it, bringing it back into our system, which is why structure is on this list, and curiosity is what will get us there. Okay, so I just quite like going all the way back at this point to 1872 to fortune telling by cards by, well, it was ascribed to Madame Camille Lenormand, obviously a famous, one of the many hundreds of relatives of Mademoiselle Lenormand that she didn't have. Just put these names on the front of books to sell them. But whoever wrote that book had some basic knowledge of teaching something, it may not have been cartomancy, to have come up with those, this wonderful list of qualities of good cartomancer, which still apply today. And as I've also mentioned and wanted to show you, these are the sorts of magazines that our tarot card reading and cartomancy survived in between the Secret Order of the Golden Dawn and the 60s revival. This is where tarot and cartomancy went, into this wonderful magazines and often pamphlets for the lady. This guide looks a little bit suspicious. This is certainly of its time, but that's where our card reading went in the 30s and 50s. So just to end with then, I would like us to read as our gems in the lockdown. Got it right that time, I didn't say gems in the equinox. Arthur Edward Waite's Lenormand. And if you have a card deck, a Lenormand card deck, you can watch this, video again. You can pull the cards as we mention them, or as Arthur Edward Waite mentions them, because very few people know that Arthur Edward Waite, in a sense, did write about Lenormand, because we now know that Lenormand cards came from the reading of coffee grounds, and Waite wrote about that, and the symbols match generally. So one of the advantages of time travel is that we can see from the future are the small events in the past, which at the time were barely noted, but have now become something far more than their original ripple in the timeline. We are never the best judge of our own time. History provides us many examples of this fact. When A. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith created their tarot deck in 1909, they had no idea what would come of it. Waite, in fact, called it nothing more than a delightful experiment. Now that we are travelling back through time with the benefit of knowing how the Lenormand deck will become a cartomantic favourite in the future, we can see the importance of Waite's writing on the symbolism of coffee grounds in his fortune-telling book written under the pseudonym The Grand Orient. Waite wrote several fortune-telling books, not under his own name, but as The Grand Orient, and then Arthur Edward Waite, A. Waite, then wrote sort of quite sniffy reviews of the Grand Orient's books, sort of saying he does know some things, but obviously he's obliged to keep his secrets and stuff, which is quite hilarious, knowing that they are one and the same person. Whilst not comprehensive, it does add to our stock of card meanings for the Lenormand, long before Lenormand became a thing across social media such as Instagram and Tumblr. So I'm going to read from Fortune Telling by A.E. Waite. This is from the Complete Manual of Occult Divination. Our version of that is from 1972, but he wrote it quite a bit earlier. So see how many Lenormand symbols you can hear in this reading. Just put the book over here so I can see it. A cross denotes news of death, but 3 crosses in the same curb, because we're talking coffee grounds, of course, are symbolic of honor. A ring means marriage. If a letter can be discovered near it, that will be the initial of the name of the future spouse. If the ring be in the clear part of the cup, it spells a happy union. If there are clouds about it, expect the contrary. If it chances to be quite at the bottom, the marriage will never take place. A leaf of clover or trefoil is a good sign, denoting speedy good fortune if at the top of the cup, and a good fortune proportionally more removed as the symbol is nearer to the bottom. Flowers are commonly the signs of joy, happiness, and a peaceful life. A rose promises health. A lily at the top of the cup foretells a happy marriage, but at the bottom it portends anger. A shrub signifies delays. A single tree, as a rule, predicts a restoration to health, but a weeping willow is a portent of sorrow. A group of trees in the clear part of the cup betokens misfortunes which may be avoided. Several trees wide apart promise that your wishes will be accomplished. A tree besides a house promises you the possession of a country seat or cottage according to size. A house beside a circle shows the former will come into your possession. If there be a cross near it, it will be situated in a city or town. Crossroads, that is. If accompanied by triangles, it will be inherited or given to you. If it be surmounted by a cross, you will die in it. Mountains signify either friends or enemies according to their situation. The sun, moon, and stars denote happiness, success. Clouds, happiness, or misfortune, according to if they are bright or dark. Birds are good omens. The appearance of one in the cup typifies a stroke of sudden luck. Fish implies good news from across the water. Some authorities interpret their appearance as the pressure of an invitation to a good dinner. A serpent is always a sign of an enemy, and if in a cloudy part of the cup, gives warning that great prudence will be needed to ward off misfortune. You definitely don't want the snake in the house of the clouds. The figure of a man indicates a speedy visitor. If the arms be outstretched, he will be the bearer of a present. A heart surrounded by dots signifies joy. A letter signifies news. And it goes on like that. A dog beside a human figure always has reference to a friend. A man mounted on a horse presages a male person who will powerfully recognize, espouse your cause. An anchor at the bottom of the cup denotes success in business. So how about that? That Waite actually, in effect, talking about coffee ground symbols, virtually lists every single Lenormand symbol in his book on cartomancy. So, in effect, Waite was one of the first people in English to really write about what we now call Lenormand. And those symbols, while, as Diane's saying, they're fairly obvious associations, and they should be kept so. This is really how Lenormand was reading. Now, Waite didn't write about the connection between coffee grounds and Lenormand because he wrote about coffee grounds, but it's us that made the connection because until recently, no one knew that there was a connection between Lenormand and coffee grounds. It was Mary K. Greer discovered a reference to a book in the British Museum, and Tali, Goodwin and I went down to see the book. We opened up the book, and there, unbeknownst to Mary or ourselves or anyone else, for the first time in recorded history was the line, "These cards can be called the coffee cards." And that line in that book, which is was called The Amusements of the Germans, was the first definitive proof that we now have, and we now know that coffee grounds symbolism became the basis of the Game of Hope cards, which became the base of Lenormand cards, and so on. And in effect, there are some other versions of what could have become Lenormand cards. other than the Game of Hope, and they have different symbols in them. And one particular deck that we've seen has, well, in fact, it's coffee cards. It has two different types of trees. It has a singular tree and a bunch of trees. Also, it has a sort of beast card, which is a big lion or bear. And I think it has, does it have the ants card, or the pests card, or something like that. It just has a couple of slightly different cards to the ones that Hector used in the Game of Hope. Then 54 years later, some German publisher, just after Mademoiselle Lenormand had died, thought, hey, we can cash in on a dead woman's name and a dead guy's deck of cards, and here, ladies and gentlemen, are the secret cards that Mademoiselle Lenormand used. And so they stole Hector's playing card game and whacked Mademoiselle Lenormand's name on the front of it, got someone to whack up a sheet of meanings from the coffee ground meanings, and there you have it, the origin and the true tradition of the whole of the Lenormand. This is why I despair at all of the so-called schools and teachings and systems, and I'm in the Belgium school, or I would Lenormand in the French school, and so on. It's rubbish. It's absolute nonsense. There's no such thing. There really isn't. So either from a marketing or academic perspective, there really isn't. Can life be observed or studied without the tarot? Absolutely. If you're a strict Jewish Kabbalist, then you're probably not going to involve the tarot in your studies, I would imagine. I just find that tarot for me illustrates the tree of life, Kabbalah, as far as needed in the Western esoteric system. The gypsy card are basically knockoffs of the types of card games that were going around at the time, and so the gypsy cards have some similarities but not others, but you can still read the symbols in exactly the same way, and in fact that's partly what prompted Tali to suggest to Shiro adding extra cards into the deck, into the Lenormand. And we asked him to put in the bridge, the dice, what were the other ones? The bridge, dice. I think he might have put the crown in. That was one we wanted, but I don't know if he did. Oh, the mask, which we thought would be good for his style of art, and a couple of other cards. I think he put 8 in the end. He did the one I wanted in, which was the well. I think the well. Oh, the maze as well. I think he put in, or the labyrinth. But any of these cards, any of these symbols could be done in any of these particular decks. And of course, the Kipper cards have their own sort of sideways history into all of this as well. There's actually about 15 or 16 whole different decks that we could probably make entirely new traditions out of, sat in the British Museum waiting for someone to go back and afford a license in order to have them photographed. But yeah, there are still whole scenes of cartomancy yet to explore that are just lying dormant at the moment. Tali and I wanted the Lenormand to be popularized again because we needed it for the Cartier project with the rose key symbolism. So I'd probably keep the extra card, but then just lay out any of the separate cards that are remaining to one side and not use them. I think that's probably the way I'd do it. Or I'd use the extra cards shuffled in the deck, and then use at least one of them as the surprise card at the end of the reading with the grand tableau. That's the way I'd probably do it. Okay, so we've reached the end of time, 50 minutes. So tomorrow we're going to do a class back onto our practical tarot, as we say, gradually make our descent from, you know, on flight pandemic airways 2020. And I'm going to give you some practice, some homework to do if you want over the weekend, because we'll be doing a session on Saturday or Sunday in the future. And then on Monday we'll be picking up with the tarot work that we'll be doing, and we'll have some better ideas as to where we're all going to go from this as well, because I don't see the Order of Online Original Hermits go without some sort of special I'll keep it secret for the moment. Some ideas, there are some ideas floating around as to where we might go with all of this. So thanks a lot for your time, everyone, and I'll see you outside. See you tomorrow, Friday evening on the 8th of May, as far as the live recordings go. Thanks a lot. Bye now.